spotlight, and we're going to shine it on a longtime friend, Joe
Joe,
Finklestein.
Joe Finklestein.
That pregnant pause scared you, didn't it?
It did. It did.
You thought I forgot your name.
And my pseudonym, right? AI Joe.
Mr. AI, too, isn't it?
Yeah, AI Joe. That's what I
AI,
go by.
it's now AI Joe.
Yeah.
Last time I saw it was Mr. AI. Artificial intelligence, what Joe's over here to talk about. The reason a longtime friend, Joe interned with me over at Channel 24 back in 1984, I think.
83.
83.
Summer of 83.
Yeah, and you were down here from Athens, but then prior to that, you lived. Where did you grow up?
I grew up in New Jersey, and a town called Old Bridge, and wanted to go away to college, and came down. We had a teacher at my high school who had a student who went to the University of Georgia, majored in journalism, and I went to check it out, and I was sold.
So you got through Athens, all right, huh?
I made it to Athens. I don't know if I'd make it now. It's a lot harder to get into that school now, but it was great.
And you interned in the TV news operations and then got out of the business.
I did. I had the opportunity to go to New York City and work for a big ad agency, and I figured that I'd make a lot of money at some point and buy my own TV station, and that didn't happen.
Well, but later on, you used that experience you got with us here in Bibb County in the Bibb school system.
I did. I started out as a teacher back in 2002, and about a year in, I was at Burdell Hunt Elementary School. Burdell and Hunt were two long, old-time schools that merged and went to a new building on Fort Hill Street, and that building was made with a TV studio in there, and it was crazy. I mean, here I was, and they turned it over to me. At the time, I think we still had sixth graders before they ended up going to the middle school. So I had fifth and sixth graders every morning doing a live news show. And we bring in, we have some things taped, but a lot of it was the anchors, and it was exciting, and people loved it. It was just shown within the building. A couple years later, they started to kind of try to get all the schools doing like a kind of a morning cast, but it wasn't like what we were doing.
System-wide, though. Yeah.
System-wide, using different tools. We were kind of like just putting it together. I probably came to you for some suggestions and advice, but it was crazy too because a year or two in, the sixth graders left, and middle school became sixth through eighth now. So now I'm dealing with fourth and fifth, and I even had a couple third graders, and we had like the Spanish word of the day, and you know how some schools will basically have up there what's for lunch. We'd go have the kids go right to Mr. Willoughby, and we had a little segment. Hey, Mr. Willoughby, what's for lunch? And they hold a little mic up, and he'd tell them. But it was really, really.
But eventually, this grew bigger and bigger, though.
It did. It did. I started getting a lot of. I get calls from people wanting to do things within the system. I also had a lab, computer lab that I taught in, and I was exposing these children to even in programming languages and multimedia, and we were going to tech fairs and winning, and got some nice write-ups and stuff. So really, really was an exciting time.
Well, you had a huge studio set up at over.
Yeah, this is years later, so I'm
Yeah,
talking
that's
about way
right,
back
yeah.
when. So I went to high school, and I taught computer science for a bit. Really enjoyed it, but my love was still into broadcast, and I got a job back in about 2015 at Central High School. So Central was the one school that really had a big multimedia broadcast program. Well, about a year later, they brought that program into the new Hutchings College and Career Academy. And we opened up our facility over on Anthony Road, which I guess used to be Ballard Hudson back in the day. And just an incredible studio with all the latest in cameras, both video cameras, handheld cameras, drones, all kinds of mic gear. I had a little podcast studio set up. It was really pretty.
Well, that got you into the future world, and we're way out there now with the artificial intelligence, and also got you a career with the Macon Melody newspaper. You've been with them for how long?
Well, I actually don't work for the Melody, but they gave me an opportunity
Well, you
to.
fill it up, though, don't you?
I do. I'm there with Ed Grismore on his pages. So last summer, right, about a year ago, I taught at a Mercer Creative Computer Camp, and I created my segment. I worked there for many years with a gentleman named Bob Allen. And Bob said to me, he goes, what would you like to teach this year? He already had like a Lego camp set and he had Minecraft. He goes, what do you want to do? I said, I'd really like to teach AI. So I basically had 3 weeks, 2 weeks of middle school students and 1 week of elementary school students to teach them how to effectively and ethically use AI. And I had a partner helping me with the curriculum and the lesson plans. You know who that was? ChatGPT. I spent a lot of time with AI in developing what I thought was a curriculum and lesson plans, and it worked so well that, I really found out that a lot of the parents, a lot of adults out there don't really know much about AI. And
well, that's where we are now. I don't know anything about it. What is AI in your mind?
In my mind, AI is where kind of like robotics and machining and programming is kind of coming together with humans to do some pretty amazing stuff. We're not at, and hopefully we won't be at that part, like, those movies in the future where robots are controlling the world. Basically AI is a tool, and it could be a very effective tool, but it is something that's been around for a while. I mean, Ron, have you used Siri before, or?
I know people who
Echo.
do.
Okay, so parts of AI have been around.
I don't like her attitude.
Yeah, exactly. And that was like kind of like 1.0. But AI has been around for a while, but it's really new that it's been so accessible to everybody.
But still, artificial intelligence. Artificial intelligence. What's it mean?
Well, it's information that has basically been sourced from millions of data points, whether it be through the internet, through everything else. And it takes that information and based on the principles, their architecture, it structures it in a way where it resembles human communication. So everybody knows Google. If I went to Google and I said, hey, tell me how many, or show me a picture of a man flying in an airplane. And it goes, and it might find a picture of a man flying in an airplane, right? But I want to continue on that vein. It's like I have to start all over again. I can't say, oh, no, put him in a blue hat, or do this or do that. It's like almost like a whole new conversation every time I put in the search engine what I want to see. Whereas artificial intelligence, language models, everybody's heard of ChatGPT, Copilot, Perplexity, Gemini, which is Google. It's generative. I could ask it information. I could continue to ask information to tinker like we're having a conversation. I'm not starting all over again. It remembers my conversation. I could go back a week from now and say, hey, we were communicating about XYZ. Let's talk about this. Is this making...
Not to me.
Not making
I
any kind of sense?
I hope some of you folks out here understand what's going on. Anyway, Jim, when I listen to, well, let's say President Trump talking about we got to have these data centers and we got to have a lot more electricity or power to generate whatever these data centers do. And it's because of AI. Why do we need so much power and generators and everything?
Well, again, just the whole process of being able to scour the internet, the world, for all this different data, it takes a lot of energy. And you have people, and multitudes of people who are using AI and the need for these data centers. I'm going to be honest with you, I can't speak too technically about that. I just know that in order for this to work, you do need these data centers.
Well, you've done about, 8 months worth of columns. Every week you come out with a different subject, like the latest one in this issue, how smart tools can help keep you safe. Now that relates to me and people like me. Now, how can they help me?
Well, a lot of people are targeted with phone calls, text messages, emails. Usually there's a little bit of, a kind of an intensity to those. Peach Pass, Georgia Peach Pass, I get a text saying that my account's overdue. I need to pay it. And so, of course, I'm thinking, well, maybe it is overdue. But then it's telling me if I don't take care of it by tomorrow, my license will be suspended. I will have additional fees tacked on. So you get this, and your immediate thought is, oh my God, especially there's like a link to click, and you don't want to do that. And so many people have been taking advantage of what AI can do is to help you really determine what's real and what's not. So I would recommend to people that they take that text, that email, and copy it and put it into ChatGPT, put it into Copilot, and just say, hey, is this for real? AI could help determine, where AI is being used. So another thing, one of the things you ask people about, and people are concerned with school and students in school, where they're like, oh, well, these kids aren't writing these papers. AI is doing it for them. So even there's tools that will be able to check to see that, no, this probably was not written by a person. It's probably AI generated. And so there's safeguards out there.
Speaking of schools and kids, won't we get to the day that we won't have to have creative writing in the school because we won't need it anymore? I remember that was a big thing back when I was in school, creative writing. And now you push a button and get all the creative writing you want. And I remember back when they had to use a slide rule in what math class? Well, anyway, they don't use them anymore. They use the calculator.
They don't use calculator.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
It's on the phone.
Everything's being phased out, but this is going to phase out a lot of stuff, won't it?
Well, let's go to that original question, creative writing, things of that nature. So my concern is you still have a lot of educators, administrators out there who are more concerned with thwarting the use of AI than embracing it to teach the kids how to effectively and ethically use it. So if you don't...
Well, if you use it, you're cheating, aren't you?
Well, it depends on how you're going to use it. If I say, hey, write me this essay, yeah. But if I say, look, I'm writing an essay about, the rise of, just whatever it might be. I say, I don't want you to write this, but here's an outline. Can you suggest anything else I might want to add to that? Or can you take a look at this draft and see if I've made any kind of grammatical errors or what I want to be to this? AI could be an incredible study partner, an assistant in doing that, and it's how you use it. And I think that we need to really learn how to use AI.
There's one headline that says, AI Joe using AI to be the best neighbor possible. Now, what's that all about?
Okay, so if we are willing and going to use AI, it's an awesome tool. I mean, how to be a good neighbor. First off, I started to tell you this before, Ron. When I write an email or I do a text, a lot of times I'll stick that into AI and say, hey, take a look at this. What do you think? In this story, I talk about like a neighbor whose tree is infringing on your yard. And it's like, that's going to make
problem. I really do.
Okay, so what your normal thought is, there's some emotion there. You're probably upset with it. You might, put that person on the defensive. I think this is a way to also help to get your thoughts down, to make it something that is more, I would say, well, not welcoming, but to, help you to really communicate better. Whether it's different activities you do.
Here's a subtitle, planning a block party or potluck. What's that all about? You remember that?
Yeah, no, absolutely. Absolutely. AI is great at helping you to generate ideas. So if I were to put in there and to say, hey, I want to have a get together, with my friends who want to do a block party, give me 5 different suggestions on maybe some different themes that we can do.
But that's Google.
Or,
I can do that on Google.
Again, we could continue the conversation. In Google, you might say that. You might come up with 5 or 10 different things.
Yeah.
Here, I'm talking to it. It comes up with some things. And I could say, hey, tell me more about this. Or,
AI for seniors, staying connected, safe and sharp.
Okay. And some of that goes again to the concerns about scams, but also in
Scams.
When we were talking before about the potential of being scammed with text and emails where people are trying to get information. So I think that seniors, especially,
Especially seniors. I get these calls all the time, and they're sound real sincere to me. I'm ready to jump in, and Pinky tells me, "Don't you dare."
Right, right. But where do you go to? So Peggy says don't. How do you find out the legitimacy of it?
She said, "Don't." I quit.
So you quit right there.
Right
I quit
there.
right there.
I need nothing else to tell me. Yeah.
Well, with AI, you could feed that information in and let it tell you. Also, with seniors, what are some different activities that you're interested in, Ron? Outside of, I know you're busy, here with doing your broadcast program. You take a lot of pictures. You're involved. But let's say you're a person who really doesn't have much to do. You go to AI and just say, hey, give me 10 different activities that, refer to someone. You could tell them what your hobbies have been, what you're interested in, and it could really come out and give you some really good starting points.
Well, my impression of AI and the way they talk about it on the networks is it's bigger than that, much bigger than that.
It is.
Like,
it is.
What is bigger than that? War. Well, help us in our wars.
Believe you me, I mean, I'm sure the defense are working on a lot of projects involving AI and everything from detecting enemy, munitions.
Just this week in Washington at a committee hearing, our defense secretary, Pete, said that we have plans to invade Greenland or we have plans to invade the Panama Canal. Of course, it appalled everybody. And his comeback was, well, you got to have plans for everything. You never know what's going to happen. But that would be an AI assignment, wouldn't it?
An AI assignment to determine where to.
And yeah, how do we invade Greenland?
I wish we were basically, doing an experiment right now. Because yeah, I mean, if you ask it, you could ask it anything. You could, Ron Reed. Okay, Ron Reed. What's unique about him? He pitched for the I know the Atlanta Braves.
He was tall too.
He was tall. He played basketball.
Yeah.
In the NBA. But what was special about him with the Braves?
He was on a losing team, wasn't he?
So he's in the Hall of Fame, not as a player, but his signature as a signed scorecard. So he was the winning pitcher the game that Hank Aaron hit his 715th home run.
He was.
So
Al Downing caught the ball in the bullpen.
In the bullpen, right.
Yeah, I remember Al Downing. I don't remember Ron Reed.
So Ron Reed went on to the Phillies, became one of my favorite players. But this past year, when it was Hank Aaron's 50th anniversary, it was 7/15.
Yeah.
It was at the Sports Hall of Fame, and they had like kind of a day, and they had Ron Reed and his battery mate, Vic Correll.
I remember Vic.
So they had Ron and Vic, and they had Phil Schaefer, who was an announcer. So Ron was fascinating. So with AI, I was there. I'm like looking up Ron Reed. It turns out that Ron Reed is one of 5 pitchers in the history of baseball to have a certain distinction. You know what that was?
Don't ask me these questions. I'm asking the questions.
Ron Reed.
I don't want to look dumb.
Ron Reed won 100 games. He had 100 saves, and he pitched 50 complete games. That's only been happening 5 times. So, I mean, not that you're going to go out and love AI because of this. I went to AI, and I was like intrigued. I was like, hey, make me a list of the top 10 pitchers based on complete games. Not only that, I said, what team do they play on? Did they ever win the Cy Young Award? How many years did they play? Are they in the Hall of Fame? Are they still alive or dead? Within milliseconds, that whole list was printed out for me.
Baseball stats are unbelievable. The stuff they come up with. 1902 or 1916, 19, just all the way up. There's a stat for everything in baseball.
There is. But how would you get a hold of that, Ron? Prior to AI, you would go and find some book. Or you might go.
Yeah, we have to go to the library.
Go to the library. You might find, something on Google. But here, again, I can continue to have this conversation with AI to kind of hone in on everything. Wow, that's really interesting. I see that Cy Young had all these complete games. What was his best year? Oh, and, so-and-so, he did this. Okay, great. Hey, by the way, how many kids did, you could go on. Ron, I think the difference, I want to go back to something you asked me before. You were like, well, we had Google. right? So what's the difference? If I could use the analogy, it's like if you had a person that you could go to and have all your questions answered. So in the old days, I go to the person, the librarian, and they say, hey, look, go check out this book. And then I read this book and maybe go to this book and this book versus going to one person right now and being able to have all your questions answered from that one source.
Community impact, technology enhancing the life in Macon, and it's doing it every day now on this level, I guess. And a look at how language models handle public figures. What is that all about?
So there's certain rails that are placed in where it's interesting. I could have ChatGPT generate an image of Donald Trump, but I can't necessarily say generate an image that has him wearing a T-shirt that says, you know, I hate, so, you know, whatever. There's certain things that you can do. But AI into itself is not supposed to be biased. You know, it's supposed to, you know, provide information. Now, based on reality, there's going to be biases there. So as far as public figures go, you know, it tends to kind of stay straight. You know, it's not going to help you, you know.
Well, AI is not going to put that T-shirt on President Trump, but you can put that T-shirt on President Trump, can't you? In the picture, you did it to a friend of mine, Raymond Tubb, is a great Braves fan, and you put a picture on Facebook with Raymond wearing a sorry Phillies uniform.
I did. So
isn't that AI or something?
no, it was definitely all AI.
Okay.
I did that, and you know, after I did it, I kind of thought, you know, maybe that's not the best thing to make that social. I'm sure Raymond had a sense of humor,
Oh,
and it was okay.
Yeah.
But you could see, Ron, where there are dangers. You could see where stuff like that has been put out. People were getting phone calls from somebody claiming to be, whether it be Joe Biden or whatever, saying certain things, and that wasn't real. I mean, right now we're seeing a lot of animations on there. We're seeing Donald Trump say things that are completely generated and stuff. Yeah. And this is something that we need to be aware of.
Here's AI in 2024. Back there, technology became personal, a tool for creativity, self-expression, and individuality.
All right, so this is a major issue right now. I could go ahead and use a program called Suno, and I could say, I want you to, what kind of genre of music do you like?
That's another question. I like country music.
Okay, I was going to say polka, but okay, country music.
That was a shot. I'll remember that.
Ron, I could say, make me a country song. Ron Wildman and I are sitting here on his TV show talking about AI, and he's dressed really nice in his suit. He's got flags on his tie. He's asking me questions. I'm a bit flustered. Whatever it is, make that song. Within 30 seconds, there is a song that sounds like it has been produced in Nashville, a country song. And a lot of musicians and artists are really concerned about that. You know, people who dedicate their lives to doing art, to being a photographer, to writing prose, to writing songs. And now, you know, me or you could go on and create our own song, our own images and stuff.
I've heard some of that. They've tried it. Randy Travis, for instance, cannot sing anymore. He had a stroke. And they put out a record. I don't know. And they wanted to, like a regular record, a commercial record, they wanted to sell. I don't know. I don't think it became anything big, but it was a real effort to sell an AI record with his voice.
So you're talking too about cloning voices, and that kind of really scares people. I will say that one of the good things about being able to clone a voice is you've got a lot of people who suffer traumatic brain injury, might suffer from ALS, who don't have a voice anymore, they can't speak, and to be able to have their cloned voice to use is kind of maybe a little bit more comforting to them. But you know, that's the thing. You know, people are concerned right now. Ethically, you can't take somebody's voice. I can't clone your voice and have you saying a bunch of stuff. I mean, that's unethical. And if I am doing it in a manner that's illegal or whatever, you know, I can be prosecuted for that.
Well, like you've done a bunch of these columns. I've done a bunch of these programs. They're floating around up in the YouTube somewhere.
Okay.
Now, there's 50 of them up there. Can you take all this stuff and generate something just totally not real from what I've done in the past several years
Um,
using AI?
yeah. I mean, if you're talking about, could I be unethical and clone your voice?
Yeah, be unethical. Yeah, yeah.
And then take your picture and make it talk and stuff? And
Yeah,
have you
do
say
that
things?
too. Yeah, yeah.
So one of the stories I
It'd
talk
be a big
about,
suit, wouldn't it?
um,
I could really do something.
you probably could. I don't
Yeah,
know
do
that,
as much as you want.
I don't, I don't know that I have the money to back that up, but listen, there's a story. This was an interesting case, and the judge allowed it. So a man was murdered in a road rage incident, and during the not the trial itself, but during the impact statements being made, he allowed AI into the courtroom. This man, okay, and I'll kind of tell you how he did it. On the screen, on a movie, video, came up this man talking from the other side. He forgave the murderer, told him that maybe in a different time they could be friends, addressed the group in the courtroom, told them to live a good life and be good. This looked like the actual man actually speaking, but, he's dead. How did that happen? And, the sister had really taken it upon herself. They found a picture. They were able to animate it. She wrote the script. They had his voice cloned. And it was like he was really talking in the courtroom. Now that wouldn't be allowed in the actual trial and stuff. But you think about stuff like that right now. That line between good and evil. You could go to museums now, Holocaust museums, and talk to Holocaust survivors. And they'll answer questions for you, but it's all being generated with AI and with images and stuff. Again, where's that line, between something that could be kind of special? Yeah. Let me ask you this. I mean, would you?
Another question to the moderator, for goodness sakes. Go ahead.
If you had a good friend or family member that had passed, would you be interested in speaking to them, having a conversation with them?
Well, of course.
But it might not really be them, but it's all the memories, and they know
Could
you.
be Joe messing around with her voice. Huh?
Well, yeah, I mean, that's right, because there's apps right now that you can subscribe to help prepare people, your loved ones, for you after you passed, with all the questions and the voice and everything, where they'll have you in perpetuity, where they could go and pull up the app and they could have a conversation with you. All the memories are there. I could say, Ron, remember that time at Channel 24 that me and you went to the Rookery with, Tammy Clifton? Remember we talked? It could know all that. It could converse. Hey, I remember that time and stuff. Now, it can't think for itself. I mean, AI isn't real. It's crazy.
Well, I see a great future for some of this stuff. And, I have a little creativity. I would like to keep it. I'd like to stay away from anything that would take that away from me or make it easier for me or give me a crutch. Am I wrong in thinking that way?
It depends. We have a mutual friend. Could I mention, Lawrence?
Lawrence Mink
Lawrence
writes
Mink,
for the Macon Reporter.
Macon Reporter.
Opposition to the
Macon Melody.
Melody.
On Fridays.
Joe's paper. Go ahead, put the knock on Lawrence.
So Lawrence is a great guy. So Lawrence writes. He's a long-time journalist or celebrity, and so we were just playing around once with one of the articles he was writing about a new restaurant that opened. All the information was in there. Got everything he needed. Who, what, when, where, why. Took that same story he wrote, put it into AI, and say, hey, could you make this more creative? Could you spruce this up a bit? And what came out was really, really good. Now,
he used his version in the paper, which was good too.
Okay, and that's fine. So I guess the question is, he's the one who wrote it, and it was changed. It was almost like when you're a kid and it was getting edited, or you've edited stories and stuff.
Yeah.
So does that mean, well, I should stay away from the editor? Should I not do that? Now, yeah, Ron, again, I don't want to say you're doing a story and you have AI write it for you, but what's wrong with it being your partner and helping your creativity?
Make a melody. AI Joe.
AI Joe.
I like Mr. AI, but somebody probably already has that one. Thanks for being with us, Joe, and the best of luck with the paper and your articles and the future of AI. You might become a rich man with this stuff. You know that?
I could be. And you know something too, if you were to really embrace that, this show could go on for the next 100 years or so. I mean, you'll be Ron Wildman sitting right there. I'm going to be AI, doesn't matter. It'll still be you. Or a likeness of you.
I hope that comes true. Thanks, everybody, for being with us. I'm Ron Wildman over here at Mercer University.